Yo guys, welcome to the second part of Form 5 Chapter 3 Book 1, whereby our topic for today is called the synapse. So what is synapse? Okay, just a quick recap on the last video, whereby we learned about the three main components in a human nervous system, which is your brain, spinal cord, and the nerves. So whereby remember nerves, we learn three types. Afferent neuron, the one that transmit impulse from the receptor to your central nervous system, which consists of spinal cord, that go up all the way to your brain. So inside your spinal cord there, you have interneuron, whereby once you receive impulse from the afferent neuron, you transmit up from your spinal cord to your brain. So your brain then will interpret what to response. After when your brain comes up with a response, it will then send signal back to your interneuron in your spinal cord and then connect to the efferent neuron. So the efferent neuron will send signal to your muscle, so your muscle will carry out the response. Okay, so synapse, actually in the last video was mentioned, whereby synapse is actually the point between two neurons. So let's say afferent and inter, right? In between them there's like a small gap. So this gap is called synapse. So basically in this video we will focus on how does impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another. How does it pass through the gap called the synapse? Okay, so we look at page number 5 first. Okay, whereby we learn about the three neurons. So these three neurons, right, they are actually connected to each other. So like a human chain like that, whereby in between each neuron, like I mentioned just now, there's a gap called synapse. Okay, so remember last week I mentioned one, synapse transmit impulse to the adjacent neurons, to the next neuron. So at the synapse, right, basically you have the end of the previous neuron and the beginning of the next neuron. So the end of a neuron here is the axon. Yeah, I know your notes that they write dendrite because axon binds right into dendrites. And the beginning of the next neuron called the dendrites. Okay, so if you look at page number 7 now, you can see that, see, this is the axon, the end of the previous neuron, and then the dendrite, the beginning of the next neuron. So how does the impulse get from one to another? Okay, so here, like I explained, synapse is the site whereby two neurons or communicate, means whereby the two neurons meet. That's called synapse. Okay, so okay, this one was all this I'll explain later. So we go through the steps first. So how does, let's say, afferent and inter now, how does the impulse get from afferent to the inter? So at the axon, now, in this synapse, right, axon, okay, which means it's like here, we actually call it the presynaptic membrane. So pre is like before the gap, before the synapse. And then the dendrite is after the synapse, after the gap. That's why this part here, oops, we call it the post-synaptic membrane. Okay, so that's the terms you need to remember. Presynaptic is before, which is the axon. Post is after, which is the dendrite. So in between them, you have a gap. Okay, whereby the gap, we call it the synaptic gap. Actually, there's a few names. You either can call it synaptic gap, or you also can call it the synaptic cleft. Same thing. So that's the gap. So before is pre, after is post. Okay, now we can look at the process. So number one, remember your nerve impulse is in the form of electrical impulse. That's what they say here. Electrical impulse reaches the presynaptic membrane, and nerve impulse would diffuse into something called synaptic vesicles. So over here you can see there's a lot of like pimples over here. So this is like your nose like that. A lot of pimple. So these pimples are called synaptic vesicle. Inside the synaptic vesicle, you have a type of chemical called neurotransmitter. Just like inside pimple, you've got the yellow pus, correct? So here you have neurotransmitter. So they say synaptic vesicles are then stimulated to release a kind of chemical called neurotransmitter. Now, what does neurotransmitter do, right? It converts just now the electrical impulse into chemical. Okay, see, which turns just now electrical to chemical impulse. Now, why must I convert it to chemical? It's because electrical impulse cannot pass through the synaptic gap. Okay, now your neurons is just like wires like that. Okay, so like this wire, this cable like this. If I cut the cable into two, this electricity, right, obviously cannot pass through from this cable to the next because there's a hole. Same thing as your neurons. So therefore, if I cut already, how does the electrical impulse from here come to here? It must be converted to chemical first. Then only I can jump through the synaptic gap. So that's what the neurotransmitter do. Okay. So now once I convert the signal into chemical, the neurotransmitter, the synaptic vesicle that's carrying the neurotransmitter will move to the end of the presynaptic membrane. See, it will move towards here. See, from here comes to here. So that's why they say synaptic vesicle move to the end of presynaptic membrane. So once you move to the end, what does it do? It releases the neurotransmitter into the gap. So this neurotransmitter, remember, are the ones carrying the chemical signal now, because from electrical become chemical already. So you release the neurotransmitter in the synaptic gap. See? Okay. So now we look at number 3. Okay, number 3 here. So number 3 is where you can see neurotransmitter moving across the synaptic gap. Okay, actually these 2 points terbalik already. This one should always to go up first. This one supposed to come down. So neurotransmitter now is released into the synaptic cleft. Now remember, this synaptic cleft is like a big hole like that. Okay, so for you to jump from one place to another, you need a lot of energy. It's like you watch those kind of superhero, those kind of action movies like that. Okay, there's a cliff like that. So if you want to jump from here to here, you need a lot of energy to jump. Correct? So that's why you need the mitochondria. That's why you must mention mitochondria then generate energy in the form of ATP so that it can diffuse neurotransmitter across the synaptic cleft or the synaptic gap. Okay, so remember, when neurotransmitter is released into the synaptic cleft, to jump across the big gap, it needs energy from the mitochondria. Okay, so just like movies, when you watch that time, when one person jumps across that, they always will miss. When they miss already, they won't fall down because at the other side, there's somebody to catch them. So here also the same. See, when I jump to the post synaptic membrane now, so from pre, I jump to post, jump to the other end. There will be somebody to catch me. So that somebody, it's called the receptors. Okay, so they say neurotransmitter now binds to the receptor at post synaptic membrane. Not of axon, of dendrite. Sorry. Okay, so the receptor is that someone to catch them. So you cannot say the word catch. Of course, you must say neurotransmitter binds to the receptor. Now, once I bind to the receptor, means from one wire I jump to another wire already. Correct? So now the chemical signal must be converted back into electrical impulse. So remember, it's from electrical. Okay, at the center here is okay, right here, chemical, and become back electrical. Okay, cannot. Now, so we look at on top here right now. The one I need to focus is the second one now. This one is very important. Okay, synapse helps nerve impulse to be transmitted in one way only. Means impulse can only move like this, like from the post which for the pre can only go to the post but cannot go back. So questions will always ask why. Why cannot go back? Why only one way? So it's because your answer, there are two ways to answer, 2 marks in the answer, sorry. Only the presynaptic membrane or neuron can discharge neurotransmitter. And receptors are only present at the post-synaptic membrane or the post-synaptic neuron. Yeah, post-synaptic neuron, post-synaptic membrane is the same thing, by the way. Okay, so if only pre you have neurotransmitter, means I only can convert the chemical signal and come like this. So why I cannot go back is because there's no neurotransmitter here, means I cannot convert the electrical to chemical, that's why I cannot go back. Similarly, at the post only is where I can find the receptor. So if I can go back, there's nobody to catch me at the other end. So I will fall down and die. So cannot reach the other side. So that's why this the electrical impulse can be only transmitted in one way. It's because of this answer. Okay, this reason. So here are the different examples of neurotransmitter. You have acetylcholine, noradrenaline, dopamine, okay, which later behind I'll explain what is it. Okay, so this is the first thing that I will go through, which is how nerve impulse move across the synapse. Okay, so to simplify this whole thing, right? Okay, so here I got my own diagram. Okay, so here's the pre, here's the post. So when electrical impulse, they first arrive here. So remember, like I said, this is like two hills like that. So like our hero over here, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, wants to jump over here right now. Okay, so before all this, okay, electrical impulse, first they will diffuse inside all this pimple. Remember, these pimples are called synaptic vesicle. So once I go inside, remember, inside I have a lot of chemical substance called neurotransmitter. Okay, whereby they will convert electrical into chemical. Because remember, to pass across the synaptic gap, I must be chemical. Okay, so this, what do you call that? Synaptic vesicle carrying the neurotransmitter will then move to the end of the presynaptic membrane, release out the neurotransmitter. So remember, just like Dwayne The Rock Johnson here, if you want to jump across the cliff, you need a lot of energy. That's why you have the mitochondria here, which generates energy in the form of ATP to allow neurotransmitter to diffuse across synaptic gap. So once the rock jump across over here, oops, there will be someone at the other side to catch him. If not, he will fall down and die. So there's someone to catch him over here. Is called the receptor. So you must say neurotransmitter bind to receptor. And then last point, you must mention my chemical become back electrical signal. Okay, yeah, so that's the end of the synapse part. Okay, come back to the notes. Okay, we go through one more thing. We skip to the last page, page 11. Okay, all this one we will do next week in a separate video, of course. So now we skip to the last part, disease related to the nervous system. Okay, this will be the last thing I'll go through, very quick, very simple one. So nervous system also will have certain disease one, whereby usually old people will have them. So the first one is called Parkinson disease, whereby Parkinson disease is a disease whereby in old people, sometimes you see them, right? They always face a very common problem whereby they'll be slightly weaker, their muscles, their hands, no strength, they cannot walk properly, cannot stand properly, and so on. Yeah, so that's actually sign of Parkinson disease. Because, okay, look at the causes first. The lack of a type of neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, dopamine, one of its function, right, is to help control your muscle movement. So as you're old, if you lack of this, your muscles cannot be controlled properly. That's why you will have tremors of hands and legs. Tremors means like you shiver. Old people, sometimes you see them like this one, their muscle will be weaker. That's why they cannot carry heavy things, cannot walk too much, and so on. And they have poor balance and coordination, cannot stand, cannot move properly. Okay. Now, the next one is called Alzheimer. Now, Alzheimer probably you've heard before. So Alzheimer is a very typical disease in old people. So why old people are more likely to have nervous disease is because their neurons, their brains start to degenerate. Okay, so as you can see, it's due to shrinkage of brain tissue and also lack of a type of neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a type of neurotransmitter that controls like brain activity, means help you to like remember things, for example. That's why old people very forgetful. Sometimes they even forget who is their children, what is their name, where are they from, and so on. Sometimes you behave abnormally, like they act as a child, act like not themselves, for example. So they will have a lot of problems like writing, speaking, all this, they suddenly don't know how already. And we always hear like old people, what happened to them is they will wander away from home. Okay, confusion, poor concentration. So actually, right, Alzheimer's disease, right, after so many years of teaching, right, I realized Alzheimer, right, also quite common in students like you all. It's because you all always have these symptoms, see? Forgetful. This week I teach what? Next week you all forget. So if you all forget already, then during exam, you all don't know how to answer the questions. So that's why you all have confusion and poor concentrations that, shit, how to do like that. Then, when your results come out very bad, you're very scared to face the reality, face your parents, then what you do? You run away from home. So like you all like that. Okay, so that's the two disease related to nervous system. Okay, so that's the end of this week's video. Next week will be the last one where we will focus on involuntary action. Okay, so that will be our next week video. Bye bye.